Welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our brother Ranga. We are continuing on the delight of existence, the solution. And we begin with the following sentence on this paragraph. If, on the other hand, we look at world existence in relation to consciousness only and to force of consciousness.
So, we read the para first. If, on the other hand, we look at world existence in relation to consciousness only and to force of consciousness, we may regard, describe and realize it as a movement of force obeying some secret will or else some necessity imposed on it by the very existence of the consciousness that possesses or regards it. It is then the play of Prakriti, the executive force, to satisfy Purusha, the regarding and enjoying conscious being, or it is the play of Purusha reflected in the movements of force and with them identifying himself. World then is the play of the mother of things moved to cast herself forever into infinite forms and avid of eternally outpouring experiences. In the previous para, he has told you that when you go to the self, the individual soul, if he leans more towards the Sat, the world seems to be so unreal in comparison with the reality of the Sat that you can come to the conclusion of Maya. Mayavada philosophy flows from there. Now he is saying about consciousness. If the individual soul going to the self experiences more the consciousness aspect, what happens? Then you see the consciousness as Purusha, and therefore the physical world becomes the Prakriti, mechanical energy, obeying the dictates of Purusha. And Prakriti is presenting all its forms and its movements to Purusha for its enjoyment. So this you end up with the Sankhya philosophy. That's what he's saying. But it's interesting to see some of the words that he's using. We'll have a look at that. If then, on the other hand, we look at world existence in relation to consciousness only and to force of consciousness, because consciousness and force always go together, Chit Shakti, they always go together. We may regard, describe and realize it. Just look at the way he uses words. You may consider it, you may regard it, or you may describe it also, or you can realize it also as a movement of force obeying some secret will, or else some necessity imposed on it by the very existence of the consciousness that possesses or regards it. Again, there are two possibilities here. The consciousness possesses the Prakriti or regards it, only looks at it. When it possesses it, we'll come to that a little later, or regards it. When it is usually unattached, it is regarding, looking at the movements in the physical world, it is not attached, it is separate. And it has a tendency to reject the physical world as unreal. But if it possesses, what happens? We'll have a look at it. It is then the play of Prakriti, the executive force, to satisfy Purusha, the regarding and enjoying conscious being, or it is the play of Purusha reflected in the movements of force and with them identifying himself. So, when the Purusha identifies itself with the Prakriti, that's our condition. We think that we are body, mind, life, and we are in ignorance. So both the things can happen. Either the Purusha can separate itself and regard it, or it can come down here and identify itself with the Purusha. That's a normal ignorance that we have. So, world then is the play of the mother of things, moved to cast herself forever into infinite forms and avid of eternally outpouring experiences. There is this infinite urge to go on creating forms. Next para he will deal with the self-delight. He has spoken about Sat, he has spoken about Chit and Shakti. Now he will speak about the Ananda aspect. Again, if we look at world existence rather in its relation to the self-delight of eternally existent being, we may regard, describe and realize it as Leela, the play, the child's joy, the poet's joy, the actor's joy, the mechanician's joy of the soul of things, eternally young, perpetually inexhaustible, creating and recreating himself in himself for the sheer bliss of that self-creation, of that self-representation. Himself the play, himself the player, himself the playground. So, when the play is there, the divine is creating his own playground, creating himself, and he is the play, he is the audience, he is the writer of the play also, he is everything. The play, the child's play, the poet's joy, he is including all types of anandas. That's why. The actor's joy, the mechanician's joy of the soul of things, eternally young, perpetually inexhaustible, creating and recreating himself in himself for the sheer bliss of that self-creation, of that self-representation. When we look at nature, we can see that this constant creation is going on. It's going on creating new forms, new species of plants, species of animals, all called indefinite creation. We don't see that creation immediately because it's a very slow process. If we make the whole movement fast, we can see the changes. Otherwise, the mutation of cells takes such a long time that you don't see the change. But over a long period of time, you can see the change. But if you compress it, you will see the change.
I asked Mother a question about what would happen to the plants in the supramental world. Mm-hmm. And she said it would be difficult to say right now. But she hinted that there would be many new colors, new forms, greater and greater beauty.
Yeah. This is a question that many times is asked, that when the supramental comes, how will it affect the lower species? This is always asked. So, Srimdo has answered this question in the Life Divine. He says that just as when life came in matter, matter didn't disappear, it continued to be at its own level. When mind came, life, animals didn't disappear, they still continue to remain. When the supermind comes also, it is not that man is going to, all men will become superman, not at all. There will be a selection which will come. But one thing he mentioned, that the speed of evolution will speed up and everybody downwards will benefit. Because the influence will be so strong, men will find it easier to become supermen. The normal human beings will find it easier to do yoga. The animals can also graduate more quickly to human form. And even the plants, now you are saying, yes, they will also benefit. Not only in evolution, but also the variety, colors, and you said colors and different species will also come up. So there will be an effect downwards, but nothing will disappear. It will all remain, but everyone will be benefited.
In book 11 of Savitri, he covers the whole thing.
Yeah.
How the higher man will influence the lower man.
Yes.
And even the earth will benefit.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
These three generalizations of the play of existence in relation to the eternal and stable, the immutable Satchidananda, starting from the three conceptions of Maya, Prakriti and Leela, and representing themselves in our philosophical systems as mutually contradictory philosophies, are in reality perfectly consistent with each other, complementary and necessary in their totality to an integral view of life and the world. The world of which we are a part is, in its most obvious view, a movement of force. But that force, when we penetrate its appearances, proves to be a constant and yet always mutable rhythm of creative consciousness, casting up, projecting in itself phenomenal truths of its own infinite and eternal being. And this rhythm is in its essence, cause and purpose, a play of the infinite delight of being, ever busy with its own innumerable self-representations. This triple or triune view must be the starting point for all our understanding of the universe. So Sri Aurobindo has synthesized all the different philosophies which are there. He has explained each one from where it is coming and what is its source. So this is the problem with spiritual experience, that when you experience one aspect, the other aspects don't seem to be so prominent. So you concentrate only on one and you say that is the reality, this is the reality, this is the reality. Actually all of them are valid at their own level. That's the whole point. And that's why Sri Aurobindo constantly insists on integral realization of the divine and not only one aspect. The transcendental, the cosmic, as well as the individual. Then only you will have a complete picture of the divine. We go to the next para. Since then, eternal and immutable delight of being, moving out into infinite and variable delight of becoming, is the root of the whole matter, we have to conceive one indivisible conscious being behind all our experiences, supporting them by its inalienable delight and affecting by its movement the variations of pleasure, pain and neutral indifference in our sensational existence. That is our real self. The mental being, subject to the triple vibration, can only be a representation of our real self put in front for the purposes of that sensational experience of things, which is the first rhythm of our divided consciousness in its response and reaction to the multiple contacts of the universe. It is an imperfect response, a tangled and discordant rhythm, preparing and preluding the full and unified play of the conscious being in us. It is not the true and perfect symphony that may be ours if we can once enter into sympathy with the One in all variations and attune ourselves to the absolute and universal diapason. That word diapason is usually the dictionary meaning gives the range of 7 notes, the octave, the whole range. Saregamapadani, or if you want in English language. Yeah, you know very well. The musician. Okay. So, and that diapason, Sri Aurobindo is saying, in his view, he has taken the Vedic thing. It means Sat, Chit, Ananda, Supermind, mind, life, body and matter. So this is the whole range. He is dividing into 7 steps. So you have to see Ananda, which is descending and coming from oneness into multiplicity. It makes itself into many centers of sensational consciousness, he is asking, because we open ourselves to sensations and we experience the world through our senses. So this Ananda which comes seems to get divided into pain, pleasure and indifference. The triple vibration that is calling. The vibration is the same, but we experience it in 3 ways. Behind this sensational experience is the true Ananda, and if you can go to that, everything will be only Ananda and not pain, pleasure and indifference. Hiding behind it. In another place he has used it as the ocean. Deep in the ocean is the Ananda always there. On the surface, ripples and foam and froth. So that is the foam and froth we are experiencing as pain, pleasure and indifference. But if you go deep inside, he will come to that. He calls it the rasa. You can get the rasa of everything, even those which are disgusting and that which is abhorrent and all. Behind those outer forms, you will see the Ananda there deep inside. He will discuss that shortly. Okay? So, unfortunately, we are always situated only in the surface of things. That's why we experience only the pain, pleasure and indifference. So, he has laid the background. He has said that it is Ananda from the highest level, the one Ananda which is descending into manifestation, becoming the multiplicity of the world, experiencing it through senses. And that's why the problem is there. But even in the physical world, behind all the forms, the Ananda is always there, lurking in the background. If this view be right, then certain consequences inevitably impose themselves. In the first place, since in our depths we ourselves are that one, since in the reality of our being we are the indivisible all consciousness and therefore the inalienable all bliss, the disposition of our sensational experience in the three vibrations of pain, pleasure and indifference can only be a superficial arrangement created by that limited part of ourselves which is uppermost in our waking consciousness. Behind, there must be something in us, much vaster, profounder, truer than our superficial consciousness, which takes delight impartially in all experiences. It is that delight which secretly supports the superficial mental being and enables it to persevere through all labors, sufferings and ordeals in the agitated movement of the becoming. That which we call ourselves is only a trembling ray on the surface. Behind is all the vast subconscient, the vast superconscient, profiting by all these surface experiences and imposing them on its external self, which it exposes as a sort of sensitive covering to the contacts of the world. Itself veiled, it receives these contacts and assimilates them into the values of a truer, profounder, a mastering and creative experience. Out of its depths, it returns them to the surface in forms of strength, character, knowledge, impulsion, whose roots are mysterious to us because our mind moves and quivers on the surface and has not learned to concentrate itself and live in the depths. So he has explained this very well, but we can go back to the sentence and see each word is very, very important. Yes.
There is a beautiful line in Savitri which describes this. Can I read it?
Yes.
Indifference, pain and joy, a triple disguise, withhold from thee the body of God's bliss.
Yeah.
Which you were saying.
So, this para he has explained clearly everything. We'll have a look at it. Since then, eternal and immutable delight of being, at the highest level it is eternal and immutable delight of being, moving out into infinite and variable delight of becoming. That which is being is becoming here. That which is stable and immutable is becoming variable here. That is static, this is dynamic. So it is moving out into the variable delight of becoming is the root of the whole matter. We have to conceive one indivisible conscious being behind all our experiences, supporting them by its inalienable delight and affecting by its movements the variations of pleasure, pain and nuclear indifference in our sensational existence. Sensational existence, when we are in the body-mind life, we are open to sensational experience. Senses are not there at the higher level, at our level they are sensational. So when you are in your body, identified with your body, you experience them as pain, pleasure and indifference.
But Aurobindo says triple disguise, it covers God from
Yes, that's what he will explain to you now. That there is a deep inside, an intraconscient, where everything is taken, but the essence is taken as only delight and not pain, pleasure and indifference. So, that which is deep inside you, okay, that's what he's saying, that is our real self. The mental being subject to the triple vibration can only be a representation of our real self put in front for the purposes of that sensational experience of things, which is the first rhythm of our divided consciousness in its response and reaction to the multiple contacts of the universe. The one becoming the many, so here we have to be in contact with the infinite variation and variable forms in the world. So some will be pleasant, some will be unpleasant, so we have to experience all this. And your sensational being is the body-mind life with the senses, and deep inside you is the psychic being, which is covered by our three veils of our body, our vital and our mind. And the sensational being is getting the experiences, experiencing pain and pleasure, but the psychic being deep inside is taking the essence of all this, and the essence that it is taking is not pain, pleasure, but always rasa. Behind all these experiences of pain, pleasure and indifference, it is taking the rasa and growing by that. And after it grows, he's saying it gives back to the outer nature characters of strength and this and that makes you grow. That's it. We'll read that portion, then we'll see what he's saying.
Indifference and samatha, what is the difference?
Pardon?
Indifference and samatha, what is the difference?
Indifference and samatha.
What is the difference? What is
No, indifference means neither pain nor pleasure in that sense.
Yeah, and samatha?
No,
Yogic samatha.
you are receiving it even if you are not in samatha, you are not in pain or in pleasure. It's a neutral state. That's what it means by indifference, not samatha. Samatha is a very high level of consciousness. Huh?
Difference, what is the difference?
The difference is in your level of consciousness. In a very ordinary level of consciousness also you can be indifferent. But samatha means you are at a very high level of consciousness, it's a positive state. This is a neutral state.
Not clear.
Not clear?
I understand, but what is the principal difference? So you are not reacting. Indifferent, you are not reacting on anything, right? You are not in pleasure, you are not and samatha is also equality. You are equal to everything.
It is not affecting you. It's not strong enough to affect you, neither pleasure nor pain. There are so many things which are neutral, they don't affect you. So that's the indifference. Pain, pleasure and indifference. Indifference means neutral. You can use the word neutral instead of indifference. You are not at a particularly high level of consciousness. No. You are indifferent to the things coming to you. It doesn't bother you. But samatha is a very high level of consciousness where everything that is coming, even if pain and pleasure is coming to you, you are not affected. But at the indifferent level, if pain comes, you will be affected. Pleasure also, you will be affected. But in samatha, nothing is going to affect you. That's the difference. We read just this. Now we have to read the, if this view be correct, no? If this view be right. That also we read, no?
Yeah.
We have finished reading. Okay. But here he explains how the psychic being receives everything through the rasa. That we'll see. If this view be right, then what is this view he is talking about? There is the Ananda at the highest level, which is immutable and one and infinite. It comes down and moves into the becoming of the physical world, and it goes into variability. There are various forms, and behind all these forms it is there always, but because it has become multiple, it is subject to multiplicity, it gives you experiences of pain, pleasure and indifference because you are in a sensational condition of existence. If the senses are not there, you will not feel the pain and pleasure. If you go to the self, the senses, you have gone beyond your senses, what the Gita calls Trigunatita, you have gone beyond your three levels of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, you will feel no pain at all. So, but if you are the psychic being also, you will start seeing the beauty and the ananda of everything, even that which is supposed to be painful, you will be able to appreciate that behind that there is something. If you are in the psychic consciousness or the self, which is your real being. But if you are in your outer nature of body, mind, life, what he is calling the surface consciousness, you will be subject to pain, pleasure and indifference. So the solution to pain, pleasure and indifference, go into your psychic or go to the self. The Buddhistic solution is go to the self. No more pain for you. The problem of pain disappears when you go to the self. Make your mind silent and go to the self. Nothing, you have lost your identification with body, mind, life, nothing teaches you. The body, mind, life will continue to feel the pain and pleasure, but you will not because your consciousness is gone separate now. So, we go to the next para. We have read this, we will go through sentences. If this view be right, then certain consequences inevitably impose themselves. In the first place, since in our depths, we ourselves are that one. He is using the word depths, but there can be a horizontal depth if you want, that's a psychic being, or it can be a vertical height and not a depth. He's using the word depth in a very wide sense, either deep inside or high above. In our depths, we ourselves are that one with an O cap. That's where the the real being that we are. Since in the reality of our being, we are the indivisible all consciousness and therefore the inalienable all bliss. So in our deep, in our self as well as our psychic being, we are Satchidananda in essence. Because we are the all consciousness and also the all bliss. The disposition of our sensational experience means you are identified with your body, mind, life, subject to pain, pleasure and indifference. In the three vibrations of pain, pleasure and indifference can only be a superficial arrangement created by that limited part of ourselves which is uppermost in our waking consciousness. The body, mind, life which is the uppermost. And when you are in the self, you see all these pain, pleasure and indifference as ripples on the surface of the ocean. You yourself are deep inside and you feel these as ripples only, not affecting you at all. Even the thoughts seem to be ripples on the surface of the ocean. Small ripples, nothing more than that.
Limited part of ourselves.
Yes.
Oh, beautiful.
Then, the disposition of our sensational experience in the three vibrations of pain, pleasure and indifference can only be a superficial arrangement created by that limited part of ourselves which is uppermost in our waking consciousness. The limited part is our body, mind and life. That's the outer covering. Behind, there must be something in us much vaster, profounder, truer than the superficial consciousness which takes delight impartially in all experiences. It is that delight which secretly supports the superficial mental being and enables it to persevere through all labors, sufferings, ordeals in the agitated movement of the becoming. So, he is not mentioned very clearly here, but he is implying the intraconscient. He has described the intraconscient in another place altogether. The inner part of you. There is a subconscious part of you, there is an inconscient part of you, there is the intraconscient part of you, and there is also the superconscient part of you. All this is yourself. So you are really the intraconscient and the supraconscient, but you are limiting yourself only to the outer superficial body, mind, life. That's the whole problem. So if you go in or up, no pain, no pleasure, no suffering. No pleasure also. You become absolutely indifferent to everything in the beginning. If you are lucky, you can have Ananda also, that is possible at the self, but not always. In Sri Aurobindo case, he didn't have Ananda in the beginning. He had only peace and infinity and release, freedom. That's what he had. The Ananda came later on, he says. It came later on. But some people can have, even when they go out of their body, they can have intense Ananda. There are some very interesting cases even in our ashram here. There is a boy who, in our swimming pool, okay, he was, suddenly those who were outside saw that he is become limp. So they suspected that he is lost consciousness. So they fished him out. And after they fished him out, he said that he had gone out of his body. And I asked him, what was your experience? He used one word, euphoria.
Oh.
So when you go out of your body, you feel euphoria. He was lucky, he felt that. But not everybody feels that. Even Sri Aurobindo didn't feel that in the beginning. So that is the experience that you can have. If you go deep into yourself, euphoria.
I have met people who have taken peyote and have that experience every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
dangerous.
Not that I recommend it to,
Yeah, that's
to
right.
anyone.
Yeah. Because when you do that, temporarily, yes, you can have that experience by artificial methods.
Yes.
But yoga does that by solid foundational methods that you can do.
Important point.
Yeah. And also it has got sometimes negative effects.
Oh, it
These
can.
drugs, yes.
It can take you into the vital worlds.
Yes. Okay. There was another boy also in the swimming pool, since it is interesting to note. There was another boy also who went limp. He is still here in the ashram. The other boy is now in France, he is an architect. Okay. But this boy, he also became limp in the swimming pool and they suspected something is wrong, they fished him out. Okay. They told me that this boy also has the same experience. They asked him what happened. So he said something very interesting. He said that I felt as though I was ahead of the body. In other words, he had gone out of his body and he felt that the body is swimming but he is in front of the body. But here there was no experience. But clearly it's an experience where he had gone out of his body. But nothing more than that.
But body became kind of unconscious.
He didn't feel anything. He could not say anything. But he said, I felt that I was out. But they fished him out quickly out of the and he recovered his breath. I think they have to give him some.
So body became unconscious, right? Lost
Yes,
conscious.
because he went limp. And those who were outside, they saw that he had gone limp. He stopped swimming. So they felt something is wrong. So they immediately pulled him out. Okay, so the solution to pain, pleasure and indifference, go into your psychic being or go up and get rid of your identification with body, mind, life. You will have solution of pain, pleasure and indifference will disappear. Then it's interesting what he's saying. The psychic being takes all these things and grows along with that. But when it is taking in, it's not taking in pain. It's taking in the rasa of the pain. This is a very interesting thing because what is the rasa in things, he will discuss later on. In our Indian system, we have 9 rasas. No? The real ananda behind all these outer forms. We'll come to that. But why do we enjoy even tragedies? We are not supposed to enjoy tragedies, but we enjoy them because you are contacting the rasa behind everything. That's a good example of how everything, even that which seems to be negative, there is a rasa behind that. Otherwise, how to explain Romeo and Juliet, okay? For 500 years or more, it is still continuing and it still attracts people's attention. How do you explain that? It's a tragedy. So there is the rasa behind everything. And this, it's not only in Romeo and Juliet. You have also, in India also, we have all these, Saurabh and Rustam and Lala and Majnu. All these stories are there all over the world probably. All of them having this tragic element. And yet there is something we enjoy in it. So, he's saying, behind there must be something in us, much vaster, profounder, truer than the superficial consciousness, which takes delight impartially in all experiences, impartially. Whether it is pain or pleasure, it takes delight in everything. Which secretly supports the superficial mental being and enables it to persevere through all labors, sufferings and ordeals in the agitated movement of the becoming. That which we call ourselves is only a trembling ray on the surface. Behind is all the vast subconscient, vast superconscient, profiting by all these surface experiences and imposing them on its external self, which it exposes as a sort of sensitive covering to the contacts of the world. Itself veiled, it receives these contacts and assimilates them into the values of a truer, profounder, a mastering and creative experience. Every life that you have, it takes the psychic being, takes the essence of all that life and grows with that. And then it contributes also in the next life, it contributes what it has gained to the outer being. Partially, not fully, but that is how it grows. And he is explaining that. He says, out of its depths, it returns them to the surface in forms of strength, character, knowledge, impulsion, whose roots are mysterious to us because our mind moves and quivers on the surface and has not learned to concentrate itself and live in the depths. So, your real growth is inside and it is sending out its vibrations of strength, character, knowledge, impulsion, even the motives of action also are all coming from inside but getting distorted through the 3 veils of body, mind, life, and you receive something of it. But if you are really open, you will receive the full psychic impulse and it will be all joy. Normally it's not like that. The psychic doesn't always come forward, but if it comes forward, everything becomes beautiful and joyful. He is also hinting here as to how the psychic being grows. It takes the experience of all these things, negative, positive, indifferent, all, and grows by that. And as it grows, it takes the essence and that is the real, it throws the shadow of all these growth into the outer nature in the next life, in the next life, in the next life. It goes on. That's how it grows. Okay? We go to the next para. In our ordinary life, this truth is hidden from us and only dimly glimpsed at times or imperfectly held and conceived. But if we learn to live within, we infallibly awaken to this presence within us, which is our more real self, a presence profound, calm, joyous and puissant, of which the world is not the master, a presence which, if it is not the Lord Himself, is a radiation of the Lord within. We are aware of it within, supporting and helping the apparent and superficial self and smiling at its pleasures and pains as at the error and passion of a little child. And if we can go back into ourselves and identify ourselves not with our superficial experience, but with that radiant penumbra of the divine, we can live in that attitude towards the contacts of the world and, standing back in our entire consciousness from the pleasures and pains of the body, vital being and mind, possess them as experiences whose nature, being superficial, does not touch or impose itself on our core and real being. In the entirely expressive Sanskrit terms, there is an Anandamaya behind the Manomaya, a vast blissful bliss self behind the limited mental self, and the latter is only a shadowy image and a disturbed reflection of the former. The truth of ourselves lies within and not on the surface. So, this experience also is described in the synthesis, how when you go to the self, your own pains and pleasures which so bothered you, you look on them as the tantrums of a child. And when a parent is looking at his own child having tantrums over a very, very small matter, even if you take away its toy, it starts crying and howling and all. So the parent is least bothered about it because there's nothing serious. That's the attitude that you get when you go to the self. You look at your own past hankerings and sorrows and all doings, and you laugh and smile at it and say, what is all this? You're not affected at all. So he is expressing this in almost the same language as in the synthesis. He says here, and smiling at his pleasures and pains as at the error and passion of a little child. So that's a Buddhistic solution. Make your mind silent, go to the self, end of pain and suffering. Or if you go to the inside also, the psychic being also, your body may feel the pain, but you will not be affected by it. You will see behind that there is something which you can take a delight in. Even the pain will teach you more than the pleasure will teach you. So the psychic being profits more actually.
I profited very, very well. A lot of pain.
You have had many, many pains and aches. 8 operations.
12.
12. Again, this triple vibration of pleasure, pain, indifference, being superficial, being an arrangement and result of our imperfect evolution, can have in it no absoluteness, no necessity. There is no real obligation on us to return to a particular contact, a particular response of pleasure, pain or neutral reaction. There is only an obligation of habit. We can change the habit. We'll come back to it a little later, where many examples are there. There is no real obligation. Okay. We feel pleasure or pain in a particular contact because that is the habit our nature has formed, because that is the constant relation the recipient has established with the contact. It is within our competence to return quite the opposite response. Pleasure where we used to have pain, pain where we used to have pleasure. It is equally within our competence to accustom the superficial being to return, instead of the mechanical reactions of pleasure, pain and indifference, that free reply of inalienable delight, which is the constant experience of the true and vast bliss self within us. And this is a greater conquest, a still deeper and more complete self-possession than a glad and detached reception in the depths of the habitual reactions of the surface, on the surface. For it is no longer a mere acceptance without subjection, a free acquiescence in imperfect values of experience, but enables us to convert imperfect into perfect, false into true values. The constant but veritable delight of the spirit in things, taking the place of the dualities experienced by the mental being. So, in fact, even artificially, if you hypnotize a person, you can change that habit of the superficial being. Pain can become pleasure, pleasure can become pain when you do that. In the hypnotic experiments, that's what they have seen. I have seen videos also on BBC where a lady is being operated on without anesthesia, and she has the power to not feel any pain. And they are talking to her, they are cutting open her abdomen, and she is saying, I have no pain at all. So you can develop these capacities. Note also interestingly how in Srirando's case in jail, big red ants are coming and biting him. It can be a very painful experience. He is getting ananda instead of. So you can change the habit. In fact, it happens even at our level. What you liked in the beginning of your life, towards the end, afterwards your reaction changes, and that which is pleasurable in the beginning can become quite disgusting, and that which was disgusting you can find it pleasurable now. It changes. So there is nothing absolute about the relation between the contact of the physical world and your reaction to it. There is nothing fixed about it. That's what he's saying. It can change.
I met a couple in California, and they took me to dinner. They were members of the Plumeria Society. And so we're at this fantastic Indian casino place with tables and tables of food, and he begins telling me about his surgery. And he said, I had a very serious operation. It was, I think, a hernia. And they wheeled him into the operation room, and he said that they started to get the anesthesia ready. He said, no, I won't have anything. He said, I'll just meditate. He meditated through the entire thing without any pain at all. This is the first time I heard of that experience, and here it is now.
Yeah. So it's only a pain, pleasure, and relief is only a superficial reaction of the most superficial part of us, the body, mind, life. Mm-hmm. Deep inside, everything is pleasurable. Deep inside and up.
Nervous system react. Nervous system react with this, gives this reaction of pain.
Yes, and that can also be changed. That's what he's saying.
Thank you,
We stop here today?
Yes.